I think it's a matter of also a key to me is that whatever Boston decides to do in terms of stopping Kyrie and Luka, they need to stick to that. Like, is it let Kyrie and Luka go off, or is it protecting the corners? You can't give lobs up, you can't give corners up and allow Luka and Kyrie to get whatever they want. So how does Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown defend Luka? The Celtics have a ton of great defenders. None of them are strong enough to deal with Luka except for probably Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I think everybody's going to get the shoulder to the chest like they did that, like that happened in Minnesota. And I think when Luka gets separation, that lean back, step back jumper that he gets into the mid-range, the step back three that he lulls you to sleep with because he's killed you too many times in the mid-range that you're pressing up on him. And that is a tough one. So only Tatum, to me, has the height to trouble Luka in this series. How well does Jason Tatum defend Luka? And then on the flip side, how well and how much energy does Jason Tatum have in the gas tank to shoulder the offensive burden himself as well?
If they can also get to Luka in a way that gets in his head and he's screaming at refs constantly too, I know that's kind of just, we have to be honest, it's kind of part of his game. Like, I was always fascinated with the fact that DeMarcus Cousins could be yelling at a ref while backing a guy down in the post at the same time.
Yep.
Like, some guys just include that as part of their game. But if you could kind of get him at least somewhat unfocused because he feels like he's not getting the calls because you're playing physical with him and it's within the realm of what the officials are going to call, I think that's another, that's always a disadvantage that any player has that gets really caught up with what calls look like, what they're getting, how many times they've been to the free throw line, any of those things. So, I mean, look, we know Luka's going to be the key of this to Boston and Dallas on both sides, depending on just how the whole thing works. I mean, Luka dominating is clearly the most obvious key. And, of course, I put that in there, but, we know that, right? Like, Luka going out there and averaging practically a triple-double in these NBA Finals with Kyrie giving you consistent Kyrie. So to me, it's kind of hand-in-hand. If it's just Luka by himself and Kyrie's up and down, I think Dallas has enough to keep up with what Boston has offensively. But if you've got Kyrie at least consistent with what his role is, we can't have the 12 points and 6 assists one game and he's only taken 7 or 8 shots, and then the next game he goes off for 35, because it's just going to make things that much more complicated for Dallas. So they've got to have both of them playing in sync, understanding what their roles are in this series, whatever that is. We've seen them be able to do both. And I think that's going to be a really, really important thing for Dallas to have, because it can't just be the Luka show by himself. As incredible as he can be, and as much as we've seen him put teams on his back before, that's just not going to work against these Celtics.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kyrie Irving. Obviously, he's an X factor, and how he plays and how aggressive he is a key. But on the Boston side, who defends Kyrie? Because this is the matchup that I think could very well decide the series, because you have to pick your poison. He's going to make you expend a ton of energy on the defensive side of the ball. And what we know about Derek White is that he plays Kyrie super tough. But normally you don't get good offensive and good defensive games out of Derek White. You kind of have to choose one. Choose one. And if Derek White is caught up on Kyrie the entire time, then you're probably going to get 10 or fewer points from him. Same thing with Drew Holiday, if that's what you decide to do in terms of guarding Kyrie, because he's going to cook no matter what, and all you can do is just figure out a way to make him see you and not just shoot over you like you're not even there.
I just feel like it's all premeditated in some way.
Yeah, or they wanted to work together, and it's like, let's start the podcast and show the Lakers how in sync we are.
You know what? That might be it. It's their way of auditioning for the Lakers and saying, see?
Look how smart JJ Redick is with his slob plays.
This would work so great. But yeah, you have to continue the podcast now, because there'd be nothing better.
Nobody gave me the pause for slob? Wow.
I don't know if that really, does that?
Slob?
Well, yes, but.
Slob wizard?
Oh, well, yeah. Now, yes.
Yeah.
Now I got it. Yeah.
That's what John Hollinger called Josh Giddey pre-controversy, the slob wizard, sidelined out of bounds play.
Oh, I actually totally forgot about that. I'll be honest with you.
Slob wizard.
So let's put it this way. It's not official. We kind of knew this was coming down the pipe. If you had to just guess right now, set theoretical odds, Trysta, that this works, and by works, I mean they're a championship contender, or it doesn't work and goes down in a big, fiery, flaming dumpster fire. What's the favorite out of those two?
Flaming dumpster fire.
There it is. At like minus 400, right?
I just don't know how it can work. I just don't. They don't have the roster, and Jeannie won't fire Rob Pelinka. And if I'm the Lakers, I figure out a way to find yourself getting Tim Connolly and let Rob Pelinka just be there like Elton Brand selling popcorn for the Sixers.
It would be...
Just keep him around and like just make Tim Connolly the guy that actually makes the decisions.
With Tim Connolly, though, and the success that he had in Denver, building a championship contender, then in Minnesota, obviously, the team that knocked off the Denver Nuggets, do you really want to go and take a job that's going to be controlled by LeBron James until he retires? I wouldn't do it.
I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be.
What would?
I don't think you would be controlled by LeBron James. I think Tim Connolly's record speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. I think LeBron will defer. I think in general, what you have for stars are players, obviously, that have a high level of confidence in themselves, and they're not going to defer unless there's a high level of respect for someone else. And there just have never been anyone that LeBron has respected, other than, I guess, Eric Spoelstra, because Pat Riley told them, we're not firing this guy.
Yeah. And then Tyronn Lue, I guess.
Yeah, eventually.
Ty Lue is
he loves Ty Lue.
Yeah, and that's the Lakers could have just given him an extra year and have been fine. You know, like that then you'd have Ty Lue as the head coach and you'd have no problems. You'd have everything and it would be fine. But apparently that's just not how they operate there. I would say there's more of a question this year about Justin Jefferson and his situation, given the quarterback situation you've got in Minnesota. Where Jalen Waddle sitting right at about 1,000 yards for his receiving yards versus 1,275.5 for Justin Jefferson. Jalen Waddle, we know you're not going to be the number one guy. Tyreek Hill's going to get a ton of targets, ton of yards, but he's also a distraction for defenses. Like when you look at those two players, now they've gotten paid, they're secure, they're where they are. The contract doesn't matter, obviously, in any of these what we're talking about here. But do you worry at all about any production from Justin Jefferson? Just in the sense that, like, I don't know who's throwing him the football, and that worries me a little bit, even how great he is.
I totally agree with you, and I think I was on this show a couple weeks ago when we were talking about J.J. McCarthy, and just like, is J.J. McCarthy the guy? You know, it's like I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. You know, it's like J.J. McCarthy to me is just he's just your run of the mill, borderline starter in the NFL. I don't know why everyone was so hot and bothered to moving up in the draft to go take J.J. freaking McCarthy. Like, what are we talking about out here? I'm just so confused, bro. I think he's just, like I said, I think there are certain things that he can do that are pretty effective, but I don't even think he's on the level of, like, let's say like a Jared Goff. And I use Jared Goff. I'm a big Jared Goff supporter, but at this point in his career, I think it's fair to say he's like the baseline of an average NFL starter, right? If you're below the Jared Goff line, you're not very good. If you're above, okay, now we're talking some heat here.
It's like the Mendoza line.
Yes, the Mendoza line and the Jared Goff line.
It's the quarterback Mendoza line. That's Jared Goff. Are you better than Jared Goff? Okay, that's the question. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is better than Jared Goff. So I don't know. I'd be a little bit confused and a little bit worried. That being said, Justin Jefferson is that guy, man. He's the dude, you know.
Yeah.
And so 1,500 yards, lock it up. If he plays 18 games, 1,500 yards, you could lock it up. And again, he could push for 2,000 just because he's that good.